So I want to do a preamble before this review, as I need to say, for fuck's sake, early again. I'm going to add this more into the review as it seems to factor in now. But early once more. This was coming out on February 18th. But no, here it is almost a whole month early. I had an interesting video to put up today with some emails that I've got back about Crash Bandicoot. But no, I guess I've got to drop everything for you, Scott, because your game is out early again. So I've got to review it day one. Again. Well, I guess I should stop stalling and go play the game. Back in a second. Okay, before we start, I need to state with the utmost seriousness, if you have any, and I mean any kind of epilepsy or are photosensitive in any way, shape or form, then I really advise strongly that you do not watch the visuals of this video. Just bring up a picture of a flower or a butterfly or a pony or that sexy purple dragon that you dream about every night and look at that while listening to the audio, as there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of flashing lights, particle effects and screen distortions. Right, with that being said, let's get into the review. So, this was a interesting experience, as during the countdown I was in the mindset of, I'm going to hate this. Then for a few weeks before the game came out, I thought to myself, you know what, maybe, just maybe, Scott did see my top 5 video and saw me calling FNAF the worst game of the year, but then giving him a message saying I know he can do better, like his first game, The Desolate Hope. Maybe, just maybe, he's seen that and this is why he's making an RPG. Maybe he wants to show that in a different context FNAF can be good and he can prove me wrong. So I changed my mindset of going into this and changed it to, I want to like this game, it's going to be a good game. Then the game got released early, again, and I saw every review was bad. I mean, look at this, even FNAF fans said this was bad. I even saw a review from someone I watch on DeviantArt, Zoo the Skunk, love your art by the way. Even Zoo said it was bad, and they like the normal games. Something must be wrong here. So, when I went in, I didn't know what to think. Playing it, it's easy to see why there is some negativity. However, before we get into this, people really need to stop overreacting. Take this from someone that calls himself a critic, even though he has not even got 1,000 subscribers, so getting review copies out of AAA companies is out of the question. From a critic's perspective, someone that has to remove all bias towards shit, everyone really needs to stop overreacting. As, in all honesty, if we were to look at this game on its own, ignoring the hate I and many others have for the original 4, ignoring the cancerous shits in the fan base, removing everything around it and putting it in a void of its own, it's not that bad of a game. Sure, it's kinda shit, and we're going to go over why, but this ridiculous 0 out of 10 worst game, absolute failure, is bollocks. And while I'm going to call the man out on a lot of shit here, Mr. Carthan does not deserve some of the abuse he's getting from this so-called absolute failure. No, you stupid little 10-year-olds. He's trying something different, and thank yourselves lucky for critics like me, so you avoid the true shit. If you've played half the stuff that I and other reviewers have, like The Slaughtering Grounds of Jim Sterling, like Total Biscuit's Bad Rats, like My Eternity Clock, then you would see where we are coming from. The 3 games mentioned are painful, broken messes that are unplayable to the point where in one of them you literally can't beat the second level. They are absolute failures. This is not. So let's have no more of this childishness. That being said, it's your turn to have a bit of a talking to, Scott, as there are many things wrong with this game, and as stated, everything essential to an RPG, the game that you're trying to make, both narratively and mechanically, is missing. We start the game with Golden Freddy saying there's something wrong, and then we are dropped into a map and told to get going. No other explanation. There are others in town, but they are just shops. No one has a quest, or a direction, or a hint as to what's going on. I get why. Scott wants to do the whole mystery thing of shit is going to happen the more through the game you get. And I start to see that. There are clues. If you leave Golden Freddy alone for a few seconds on every last line of his text, he spazzes out and says secret text of find the clocks and stuff to you. There is a strange dancing man in the shadows. These are true clues. Scott has learned that you need something to stick out. Something strange, something that's out of place, that is a hint to something much bigger going on. Well done, Scott. It's just a shame that it's all for nothing, as in the end, not to really spoil anything, but if you are a FNAF fan, guess the boss now. Chances are you guessed right. Guess what the clocks do? Again, chances are you've hit the nail on the head. Is there supposed to be something more? Like, oh, in Clock Game 1, it's a silhouette of Phantom Marionette, and in Clock Game 2, it's a silhouette of Perfect Mangle, and you have to use these 4 specific characters in Party 1 in order to unlock something, or them things mean something. Maybe, but then we get back to the original series and what made it and the fan base so shit, looking too deep into every single little thing when there probably wasn't not even a story to begin with Matt Pat just pulling shit out of his arse and Scott being like, yeah, that's totally what I had planned. So, the story is pretty much a failure, but hey, he put clues that do stick out, so you're learning, Scott. So how about the basic mechanics? Yeah, they are an absolute failure. Much like the story, nothing is explained, nor are there any menus to find any explanations of even the most basic things. And in an RPG, this is vital. Like, in an Oh, hold on. I was just booting up the game again to get a specific name of something in the game, and the game updated. Not changed anything yet, but there is an update note. Let me just read this. Well then, you know what? From what I have just read, I'm going to leave this section till last. It does not excuse it, but it's something nice that I want to add in the end. So, let's skip the basic mechanics for a moment and move on to the graphics. They're absolutely fine for the most part. First, in terms of the overworld, the 8-bit pixel style is fine. It's nice and colourful and you can tell what every object is. However, 2 minor nitpicks on this overworld. First, the black lines are not necessary. I get that you wanted it to look like it's on an old arcade machine, but its black borders and little buttons below the screen already give it that effect anyway, so there's no need for the black scan lines. A solid image would be nice, please. Second, there are secrets in the game. Like, look at this one. Here, you can see me walking through this tree to get a secret, and it looks the same as any other tree. It's not lighter or different coloured or glitched. It looks exactly the same, and there are points in the game where you need to find a secret wall to pass through to move on with the main game. So it leaves you bumping up against everything, trying to find that one spot you can walk through. So a slight colour variation or indication that this one tree or this one dead bush is different would be nice. Then, as for the battle graphics, they are fine. Each of our main character models has been nicely polished and it's animated well, as are all their attacks. Same with the monsters. While not the most creative things around, they are still nicely polished and well animated, as are all their attacks. Again, however, I do have a complaint of both your and their attacks are all particle effect maelstroms full of flashing lights. It's highly unnecessary. I can see the pizza wheel rolling towards them, and I can see the party ball opening. You don't need to have speed lines and flashing yellow screens when the pizzas are rolling, and if it was removed, it would not take anything away. Still, even with all of the particle effects and flashing lights, it was fine for 3 hours, so I guess in that sense it's still better than the Oculus Rift that causes eye strains and headaches after like 1 hour of using it. Then, as for the battle screen and the battle screen backgrounds, again, they're okay. Maybe up-res them a bit, as I don't understand why the battle screen backgrounds are so blurry. So yeah, the graphics are passable. Moving on to the music, once again, it's passable, and there is not much more to say besides that. The tracks are fine, nice and lively, but it's much like your typical game music. It's just a nice tune that plays in the background. Nothing to remember like Metaton's Metal Crusher or the final song from Jak and Daxter, Dark Descent. You know the one where they're opening the Dark Eco Silos and it's like bum 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 ba-dum dun da 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 da. You know, like the big epic one. So if you put your own music on, you're not missing anything. So, lastly, before we move back to the mechanics, let's have a quick look at the combat system. And we will just talk about the combat alone, then move on to what was missing from the combat and the combat mechanics. So the combat is great. If there is one thing that is done right, it's this part right here. It is a nice hybrid of turn-based and real-time. As in battle, you can make moves whenever you want, and so can the enemy, as the moves are tied to this timer. So you can go all out and make all your moves, or you can give the enemy a free turn if you're planning something with your other team that you have. Speaking of, at the beginning of the game, you're told to pick 2 teams of 4, and during the combat, you switch back and forth bravely default style, which comes back to the giving the enemy a free turn for you to set up something like this. You have Team 1 out on a boss. You switch to Team 2 with Golden Freddy and other characters that have stat debuffs. The boss takes his free turn, as your turn was to switch. Then you use poison, attack down, defense down, and all of the other status infections with your Team 2. Give the boss another free turn to make you switch back to Team 1, which is your high damage team, using high damage attacks, which will do even more damage now due to the status effects, to put him basically out of commission, with Chica healing any damage that you take with the cupcakes, as she is a white mage of the group. I love this battle system. It worked in Bravely Default and it works well here. It keeps the battles exciting, fast-paced and quick. So now we'll move on to the final verdict, and the mechanics will be included in that due to what's been going on around the internet during the time of typing this review. So my final verdict for Five Nights at Freddy's World is an average 3 out of 5. Due to even the FNAF fan base being pissed off at this, I was going into it thinking, oh god, this is going to be absolute shit, with nothing to save it. But of course, that was just all of the 10-year-olds screaming because it was not what the other FNAF games were. However, as a critic that removes all bias from the verdict, i.e. does not take the cancerous 10-year-olds of the fandom into account, nor the past games, and looks at the thing on its own merits, it was not that bad. But by no means is it a good game. It is little more than an average RPG. If it was a physical thing in store, it would go like this. If I saw it for £20 full price on the shelf, no way. But if I saw it on the pre-owned shelf, £5, and got it, I would be like, it was okay. Nothing special. Glad I didn't pay full price for it. Speaking of which, is it worth the £7, $10 asking price? Nope. Not as it stands. It's more of a £3.50, $5 game. But maybe if everything in that update message coming in the next paragraph comes to fruition, then it will be right on the asking price versus content. But back on track for a moment. The combat system is great. The graphics and music are passable, but there is a lot missing, like a real good amount of things missing that any basic RPG, even one that's made in RPG Maker, should have. There is no stats screen for any of the characters. Who has got what equipment? Does this armor upgrade count for just Freddy or the whole party? What stats does everyone have? The most you get is a little number telling you their level, but that doesn't mean shit if you can't see any other stats. Descriptions are flat out missing. I've got these chips that say shit like, quick start party. What does that mean? Is it an overworld effect? Or does it mean that I get to go first in battle? Oh look, Not Mangle has got wasp robots, and over here she has medbots. What do? It becomes evident in battle, but it would have been nice to know what they did. Even in battle it's hard to work out. Wait, did that arrow just appear from a cupcake because I was full health? Or did the medbot do that? What does the arrow mean? I mean, there is a green one, a blue one, a red one. It's a stat up, yes, but which stats? I feel like I'm playing the end of Mass Effect 3 all over again with the green, blue and red buttons, which I have no idea what they do. Why do I have to reset both my chips and my bytes every single time? Why can I not just unclick one and then click another one? Not that I know what any of them do. And the biggest one, take note of this one, Scott. Why the fuck, considering how fucking low the graphics on the overworld are, why the fuck is there a loading screen anytime I transition? Going from chips to the overworld, load screen. Change your party, load screen. Got an upgrade from the shop, load screen. Gone through a glitch area, load screen. Christ, it's an 8-bit overworld. You don't have to be Sonic 06. You don't need to load all of Soliana every time I exit a menu. Fucking hell. I feel like this is an early access game. You know, if you just kept to your schedule and released it in February, that would have been a whole extra month. A whole extra month to fix all of these silly little problems that should not be there. In reality, this game is closer to a 2 out of 5, maybe even a 1 out of 5. Well then why the hell did you give it a 3 out of 5, Spyro? Well, Scott, and viewers, because of the final paragraph of this review. Yes, this game was getting a 2 out of 5 and is pretty much a 2 out of 5 without a doubt, but I had to add 1 point because of all of the faults I just mentioned have not fallen on deaf ears. Mr. Carthan did take note of all the complaints and has made this Steam update. Hello everyone. This isn't exactly an announcement I'm going to enjoy writing, but it's one that I feel I owe to the community. You know, I've been accused of rushing my games ever since FNAF 1, but I've never felt that I'd released a game early. Until now. There are a lot of features that this game should have had before release. Features that I was told about, but ignored, and didn't implement. Features such as being able to see what abilities do during battle, or being able to see a stats page for your characters. These are all features that any good RPG would have. I got too eager to show the things that were finished that I neglected to pay attention to the things that weren't. I'm going to fix this. I'll be updating the game with these features in the coming weeks. So, I say to a community that I've enjoyed and respected for over a year and a half now, I'm sorry. I will continue to add features to the game and make it right. Update, here's a list of features, and we'll get into that later. Does this excuse you, Scott? Fuck no. You're being a AAA bastard like everyone else. Like Arkham Knight. Like Assassin's Creed Unity. With the mentality of, release the broken, unfinished game and patch it later. That behaviour is inexcusable, really. If you had just added the early access box and said that is what you want to add in the next few weeks, it would have lessened the backlash. However, Scott, there is one thing you did in this paragraph that deserves and gets my utmost respect for you as a developer. You apologised. It's almost sad that such a simple thing is worthy of applause. But you, Scott, you have just shown how much of a big man you are, and I respect you for that. It takes some real, and I mean real, brass balls to stand in front of the hate-filled void that is the internet and not only say sorry, but also admit that you were wrong. There are very few developers that ever do what you just did when they release a shitty product. Certainly no AAA does that, lest we not forget Randy Pitchford, the lying snake that he is, releasing the broken mess of Aliens Colonial Marines. It was a shit game and there was backlash, but Mr. Pitchford did not apologise. He did not say that he was in the wrong. To this day, he still says that it was our fault. His marketing team was just doing what it was told. It's not my fault that the whining gamers that got it did not like it. We did nothing wrong. Fuck off, Randy. Warner Brothers, who did not care that Arkham City was buggy and broken, nor were they going to fix it as they were working on the DLC, or any of the meltdown devs that go on a warpath if their game is called shit. Cobra Studios, Digital Homicide, Digpex Games, and the Day One Gary's Incident guy, all on a warpath because their shit game was called shit. But you, Scott, you did the right course of action. It takes a big man to stand his ground and stick up for himself. But it takes an even bigger man to admit they're wrong and say sorry. You, Scott, are that bigger man. And in an industry of liars and bullshitters that try to worm their way out of any kind of blame like Randy Pitchford, it shows how dedicated you are to your fan base, and 1 point was added out of sheer respect. However, these changes you're talking about are not yet in the game. You and me, Scott, have not seen eye to eye. I hated the normal night traps of FNAF 1 through 4. This was an RPG. I was willing to give it a chance. In my top 5 and bottom 5 of 2015, I called FNAF 2 to 4 the worst games of 2015. And in that video, I called out to you. I talked about the Desolate Hope, how creative it was, the time and effort that went into it. In that video, I knew FNAF World was coming out, but I asked you to prove me wrong. Show me that the old Scott is still in there. The creative Scott that puts effort into his games is still around. It seems my cries were not alone. In the comments of that apology, there was a lot of screaming idiots that constantly copy and pasted the same message over and over, like this child, even using multiple accounts to paste the same message, or this other kid that says this is the worst thing he's ever played. Then you must not have played many games, my friend. But the more rational, reasonable commenters speak volumes to what I have asked and what they personally think of you. Let's look at one from Pixel Rush. It takes balls to admit to the angry void that is the internet that you screwed up. Good on you, Scott. Also, if you could make something like the Desolate Hope again, I would totally buy it. Like me, he applauds you for having the balls to admit you're wrong, and also wants to see a new Desolate Hope, a new, creative, effort-filled, non-FNAF game. Let's look at two more from Xana and the Uber Waffle Cake. So here's the one from Xana. People need to not be so aggressive. This is one guy we're talking about, not a group of people. It would be different if an indie company made this mistake. Not too sure I agree with you there, because even if it's one person they shouldn't make this mistake, but still, second sentence. Props to Scott for being the bigger man and acknowledging and trying to correct his mistake. Going to the Uber Waffle Cake. You are the best for being honest. Thank you, Scott. Many wouldn't even do this. Randy Pitchford. You did the right thing to apologise, and I'm sure that everyone will accept this once again. Thank you for noting this. Super duper helpful. Both again saying you did the right thing and accepting your apology, as you're one of the very few that would ever do this, unlike Randy Pitchford. You see, Scott, ignoring all of the screaming 10-year-olds that copy and paste their stupid opinion, there are people that do enjoy what you make and are willing to forgive you for your mistakes, because you are one of the few developers that has the balls to admit you're wrong. I hope this video does find its way to you, Scott, as this is my final closing message to you, Scott, and I want you to listen. And I want to see it happen. As a critic, I cannot ignore your shitty AAA method on this game of release it missing stuff and patch it later. As it stands, it's just a bland, average RPG. 2 out of 5. 3 out of 5 for what you did. I even state that I hate the original FNAF series. However, I'm willing to put all of that aside. I see a great game here. The bravely default combat system, the follower mechanic of the wasps and the medkits that help you in battle. Some, but not all of the graphics. There is a good game in here. I can see its potential, and out of all 5 FNAF games, this is the one that is more like the old Scott, the one that made the Desolate Hope. Someone that is trying to put real effort in now. So, fix your game. I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 and calling it crap. Take this review and say to me, fuck you, Spyro. My game is not shit. Look at it now that I've fixed it. As a critic, I like being proven wrong. I like when someone takes what I think is bad and fixes or tweaks it to be better, rendering my score null and void. From the actions you have done on the internet and the fact that you put a little more effort into this one, I want to see FNAF World get a 4 out of 5, even a 5 out of 5, without having to give you 1 point out of respect. This being said, you might be lying just to appease everyone and don't do shit. A lot of people, including myself, know that there is a good game maker in there somewhere. A lot of people, including myself, accept your apology and having the balls to do so. But how the gaming industry is right now, I won't believe it until I see it. So, Scott, prove me wrong and show me that you are someone who cares and is willing to fix it. But then, stop. No more FNAF. Let it die. Me and many others know that there is a better creator in there somewhere. I have no doubts that you can make something amazing. I believe you can make something as good as Shovel Knight. I believe you can make something as good as Isaac. I believe if you really tried hard enough, you can make something as good as Shantae. You have the programming skills and the imagination. We have seen it in A Desolate Hope. So, after your fixes, let FNAF go. Let it die. And most importantly, prove me wrong. And prove that mine, Pixel Rush, Zoo the Skunk, and everyone else is right to believe that there is still a talented creator in there somewhere. To paraphrase Papyrus from Undertale, you might have made some shitty games and pissed a lot of people off, but I still believe in you. Just don't let that belief go to waste.
I want to inspire you.